There's a person at your front door. I opened my eyes and glanced at my nightstand. My phone was buzzing with a notification. According to the alarm clock, it was 3:03 a.m. I reached for the phone, still half asleep. There is a person at your front door. My Ring doorbell camera was active. Something had set off the motion detector. Well, someone. A face filled up my screen. I didn't recognize the man. He was pale, eyes were wide, lips were thin, wearing a baseball cap over long hair. The stranger slipped off camera for a moment, and I got out of bed, moving carefully so I didn't wake up Susan. There was a bat in the corner. I grabbed that and a flashlight from the nightstand, then headed downstairs. I heard a scraping sound from the other side of the front door. Taking a deep breath, I held the bat close. "What are you doing out there?" I called out. The sound stopped. There was a long silence. I became excruciatingly aware that I left my phone upstairs. "Just a delivery," the man responded eventually. "Amazon." "It's 3 in the morning. Sorry to disturb you." I heard footsteps, then an engine starting. I peeked out of the window. I saw a brown delivery truck pull out of the shared parking lot between our townhouses. After a few minutes, I opened the door, and there was a white Amazon package with a familiar smiling logo. I brought the box inside, then locked and deadbolted the door. This package wasn't for me. It was the wrong name and wrong address. What the hell kind of Amazon guy makes deliveries in the middle of the night? I asked myself, shaking the box. I decided to put it back in the mail the next morning so it could be on its way to the right address. The same Amazon truck drove through the neighborhood a dozen times over the next week. I saw the driver making his rounds at all hours of the day. He wore the same jeans and faded hoodie constantly. The man was thin, a little on the short side, and he walked with a manic energy to his step. I'd never seen a delivery driver so excited to be on his route. He seemed to be most active late at night. More than once, I'd peek out of the window to see him standing close to the neighbor's door, fidgeting, then dropping a package roughly on the welcome mat. The first murders took place the next weekend. "Terry, come over here," Susan called from the living room. I was in the kitchen making us dinner. My wife mentioned for me to join her at the window. I noticed the red and blue flashing lights before I reached her. There were 3 police cars in our parking lot, as well as an ambulance. Uninformed officers swarmed around the townhouse, directly across from our own. While we stood staring, paramedics wheeled out a stretcher carrying a black body bag. A second team followed with another gurney. On this one held one of our screaming, twitching neighbors. "Jesus," Susan whispered. "Is that Mrs. McCourt?" It was hard to tell from the distance, that with our view blocked by the cops, but the woman on the stretcher looked an awful lot like her elderly neighbor. Her blanket was covered in red stains. Something had torn up her face and neck, ripping her cheeks open to the bone. The skin hung in wet flaps. While I couldn't be too sure, it appeared like one of her eyes was gone, leaving nothing but a raw socket. "Do you think it was an animal attack?" Susan asked. "I don't know. Can you ask your brother?" I sighed. You know he doesn't like talking about ongoing cases. It could get him into trouble with his captain. "He doesn't need to give you all the gruesome details. Just ask him if the police know what happened. If it was animals, a dog, or something else." "I'll ask," I promised. It wasn't an animal attack. My brother filled me in on as much as he could. "I thought about you and Susie when I heard the call come in. Tommy told me over the phone. When I heard the address, I knew it was right by you. Awful. Brutal stuff, man. They found the husband tied up on the kitchen floor. He'd been stabbed a dozen times, and then his throat slit so deep, his head nearly came off. The wife was alive when the officers got there, but she was a mess. Somebody had been cutting on her for hours, even took one of her eyes out." "Good Lord," I whispered. How is she doing?" "I'm afraid she died at the hospital. There was nothing they could do to help her. Too much blood loss." I heard my brother hesitate. "Look, with this being so close to you, I gotta ask, did you see anything at all? Anything suspicious? According to our timeline, whatever psycho did this probably broke into their house in the early morning and really took his time. There were no signs of a forced entry, so we think they might have been someone the victim knew. Do you know if the McCourts had any enemies or disgruntled family members? Troubled friends?" No, Tommy, sorry. We didn't know the couple that well." "All right. Well, if you think someone targeted the event, I don't doubt there's any danger for you or Susan. But keep an eye out for anything suspicious, just in case, okay?" "Sure, Tommy." The second I hung up, A face floated up to my mind. The thin Amazon driver in the hoodie and the ball cap. I shook my head. Amazon drivers were everywhere. Who could be less suspicious? The next murder happened at the townhouse, only 2 doors down from ours. It was a few days after the McCourts died. I woke up to the sound of sirens. This time, instead of watching from the window, I went downstairs and stood on my porch. The parking lot was full of police. An officer started heading towards me immediately, notepad in one hand and a flashlight in the other. It was dark outside, even with the glow of the street lamps. Before the officer brought me back into my house to take a statement, I got a good look at the neighbor's house through their window. I wish I hadn't. The living room was one big, slick bloodstain. Our neighbors were 3 college students sharing the townhouse. 2 guys and a girl, I think. It might have been a couple and their friend. They were nice. We always exchanged good mornings when I was out walking the dogs. All 3 seemed like good kids. Somebody had decapitated the trio and swapped their heads around, then duct taped them back on different bodies. Their stomachs were sliced open, with the inside bits pulled out and left on the rug in wet purple-gray piles. I just made it downstairs into the bathroom before I threw up. We don't like using the term serial killer this early in an investigation, Tommy told me when I called him the next morning. But I understand that it's alarming for you all. 5 murders in 2 households right next door. It might be time for you and Susan to take a trip away for a while. I was looking out of my window at the parking lot. There was crime scene tape right next door, and more of the yellow and black tape across the lot at the McCourt's place. But that wasn't what had my attention. There was a familiar brown delivery truck parked a few spaces down at another townhouse. I watched the driver standing at the person's door, lingering far longer than he needed to. He dropped the package carelessly on the porch and practically skipped back to his truck. Do you remember when you asked me to report anything suspicious? I asked Tommy while I reached for a pen. There's a license plate I think you should run. I jotted the number down of the truck as it drove out of the parking lot. The driver and I made eye contact before I left. He smiled and tossed me a little wave. They found the driver with his truck parked near a local McDonald's later that afternoon. Tommy filled me in on the details the next day. It was bad, Terry. The worst I'd ever seen, my brother told me, staring down into his coffee cup. You saved some lives by noticing the Amazon driver. Except the man really wasn't a driver for the company. His name was Alfred Ward. It looks like he murdered the actual driver and stole the truck about 3 weeks ago. He even disabled the GPS tracker, so it's been off the grid. Alfred's been dropping off the packages to incorrect addresses every day since. See, that was just an excuse to get on every doorstep. What Alfred was really doing was taking impressions of the locks. That's why there was never any sign of forced entry. He made keys and let himself in. Alfred, he had a key to your place, Terry. We found it in the truck, along with more than a dozen others. And we found the other driver. Or what was left of the driver, I should say. Alfred got hungry, I guess. Took a few bites out of the guy each day. Tommy's hand was shaking as he took a sip from his coffee. The driver's arms and legs were stripped to the bone, Terry. Gnawed on, like an animal got to them. And the worst part? When we took Alfred in, he was smiling. He looked so happy when he opened the trunk and saw all the blood. I didn't say a word in reply. I just paid the bill for the breakfast and left. My first stop was the hardware store. I needed to change the locks.